Rachel gripped the steering wheel, fighting the heaviness in her eyes. She'd been driving for hours, trying to make it to her sister's house before dawn. The radio crackled with static, broken by the occasional faint melody of a distant station. She reached out to change it when her headlights caught movement up ahead. A figure stood on the shoulder of the road. Rachel hesitated. Picking up hitchhikers wasn't something she'd ever done, but the emptiness of the road gnawed at her. Having someone to talk to might keep her awake. She slowed the car and pulled over a few feet ahead of the stranger. As the figure approached, Rachel's unease grew. The hitchhiker was tall and gaunt, wrapped in a tattered coat despite the warm desert air. His face was pale, almost sickly, with eyes so dark they seemed to absorb the light. "Thanks for stopping," he said, his voice low and gravelly. He climbed into the passenger seat before she could respond, slamming the door behind him. "No problem," Rachel said, forcing a polite smile. "Where are you headed?" "Just down the road," he replied vaguely, staring straight ahead. Silence settled over them like a heavy blanket. Rachel glanced at him out of the corner of her eye. His hands were clasped tightly in his lap, knuckles white. "So, what brings you out here this late?" she asked, trying to break the tension. The hitchhiker didn't answer right away. "Long story," he muttered. Rachel felt a shiver crawl up her spine. She tightened her grip on the wheel. "All right then," she said softly. Minutes passed in silence. The hitchhiker's gaze never wavered from the road ahead. Rachel noticed he didn't blink often. Her skin prickled with unease. "You shouldn't have stopped," he said suddenly, his voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. "What?" Rachel's heart skipped. "You shouldn't have stopped," he repeated, turning to face her. His dark eyes bore into hers, unblinking. "People like me. We rely on people like you." Rachel's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" The hitchhiker grinned, his teeth unnaturally sharp. "You don't realize how many of us are out here waiting, praying." Rachel's blood ran cold. She slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt in the middle of the deserted road. "Get out!" she demanded, her voice shaking. The hitchhiker tilted his head, studying her. Then, without a word, he opened the door and stepped out. Rachel didn't wait to see what he would do next. She floored the accelerator, the tires screeching as she sped away. Her heart pounded as she glanced in the rearview mirror. The road was empty. No sign of the hitchhiker. But as she looked back at the road ahead, her breath caught. He was standing in front of her car, grinning. The car swerved violently as Rachel screamed, the world spinning into darkness. When the authorities found her vehicle the next day, it was empty. No sign of Rachel.